Good morning, and welcome to Morning Movie News, where Hollywood may or may not be up to some things that are a bad idea. We have two very questionable stories today, then one awesome one, and then a viewer question which highlights just how busy Disney is these days, and how that's both a blessing and a curse. All right, so the first story of the day is something that has many of you very concerned. Oh, and by the way, happy April Fool's Day, although these stories are not April Fool's stories. They all broke yesterday, so I'm definitely keeping an eye out for that. But this one, I'm sure many of you wish was an April Fool's Day report, which is why I mentioned that. And that's the rumors that Suicide Squad is going into heavy reshoots to try and become a little bit more quote-unquote fun, because Warner Brothers does not want a similar reaction that they had with Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. And as you might recall, that's one of the reasons I gave for why the movie's having a little bit of a hard, well, not a little bit, a very hard time. And that's because some people like their superhero movies to be fun. They think they should be a little bit more jokey. Now, if that's the case, and Warner Brothers is just bending to peer pressure, that would be very disappointing that they would alter Suicide Squad so late in the game. I mean, they're just a couple of months away from release, to try and, add some levity to the DC cinematic universe, to try and be more Marvel-esque, where, a lot of people were very excited about how dark Batman v Superman was, and maybe it just takes some getting used to. But anyway, that's where it's a problem. That's where I think it would be a bad news story if that's why they were doing it. However, I want to just talk about another potential reasoning, which I would therefore think this would be a good idea. Now, there's a rumor out there that the reason that Suicide Squad needs these reshoots is because all the jokes and the humor, the dark levity that you saw in the amazing trailer was all there is in Suicide Squad. They took all the jokes, stuck them into one trailer, and they don't have anything else. So that's why they're doing reshoots. And if that's the case, I would agree with that. I don't understand why Hollywood consistently cuts trailers that don't represent their films appropriately. I think that Batman v Superman was mismarketed. I think the audience was set up to expect a certain type of movie, and then when they didn't get that, it was a jarring experience, which I think also contributed to the negative reaction to the film from so many people. So I don't know why they would do it again. I don't understand what editor would then said, "Hey, will you cut a trailer for Suicide Squad?" And they go, "Okay, I'm going to take all the jokes in the movie, ruin them in the trailer, by the way, and then misrepresent the actual film that you're going to get." I mean, it's just so ridiculous. So if that is the case, I would first of all fire whoever cut that trailer, but then the trailer looks so amazing, so I feel bad saying that. But at the same time, why did you put the movie in that position? I know that it's the marketing department's job to sell the movie, but they don't want to kill it either with a misrepresentative trailer. So I'm against the reshoots if it's just caving to peer pressure, but I'm for the reshoots if that trailer is not indicative of the movie itself. If that's not what the movie is like, I think they need to fix that. I would be very concerned about that. And what am I talking about with the Batman v Superman marketing? Well, I think by calling it Batman v Superman when it really was Dawn of Justice, I think that misled a lot of people into thinking it would be just like a fight movie, like it's a big fight. But that was actually a small part of, not a small part, but it was more like a battle. It was more of a chess battle than like a wrestling match battle. And I think that people didn't expect that. So, they're like, a battle of ideologies. I didn't pay for that. And, in like 4D with shaky seats. Every time one of them says something startling, the seats shake. And I loved the movie, but and also I have to say I'm open for, playing with continuity. I'm someone who's always loved Elseworld stories, so I don't mind that they, tweaked the characters, and I know that's bothering some people. But they should have prepared people for that with the marketing. Also, I think every poster and every trailer for Batman v Superman also made it seem very action-packed and not really the more of a cerebral, fascinating film, an ambitious film that it actually is. So I think that the marketing, while it gave it a wonderful debut, didn't really, it gave the film, it kind of hurt itself with the way they set it up. So I do not want to see that happen to Suicide Squad. I mean, Warner Brothers might survive this thanks to the box office, but they can't have two of these. They can't have two problems like this. All right, so anyway, That's the first story of the day, and I'm very curious to what your thoughts are about that. Do you agree with me about when it's okay to do reshoots and when it's not, and why do you think they're doing reshoots? All right, so the second story of the day is that Disney is like, we know that Universal has their own Snow White franchise. The sequel comes out in just a few weeks, or the prequel comes out in just a few weeks, but they're like, that's not going to stop us. We're going to make our own Snow White movie, but it's going to be about her sister, Rose Red. And if anyone reads Fables, you're very familiar with Rose Red. But most of the world is not. And sadly, most of the world doesn't read Fables, but if they don't, you're missing out. Seriously, go pick up Fables. It's over, but they have so many trades, like tons of trades. Also, there's Jack of Fables, the spin-off series. Really, you will read it as fast as you possibly can. Actually, be careful, because once you undertake it, you won't be able to do anything else until you finish it. It's amazing. I remember one Christmas I got like the first couple of trades, like 4 trades. I think I hadn't started the series when it began, and I just read them in a week. They were that good. All right, there are also it's a bit of an R-rated comic, so I made the mistake of reading it on the airplane. So just be careful about where you read it. All right, so it's very good. So anyway, Disney is doing their own Rose Red movie, and just get this, they actually have the same screenwriter who did Snow White and the Huntsman. What? Why would you hire him? That movie was not good. The only reason anyone liked it was because of Charlize Theron's performance, and that was really only because of Charlize Theron. No one's like, remember that cool line that she had? No, because there weren't any. So why they would hire Evan Doherty, that's that writer's name, to do their Rose Red, I have no idea. It's also being produced by this guy named Trip Vincent, who was like, Joe Roth can't be the only one making fantasy movies. Joe Roth produced, he did the Snow White and the Huntsman, by the way. He probably was like, I'm not ever hiring Evan Doherty again. But he also did Maleficent, which one? Also Oz the Great and Powerful, I think. So he has a good track record producing live action fairy tales for Disney, but Trip Vincent wants to as well. So he already has a Genie's Aladdin prequel set up at the studio and a Prince Charming movie, which sounds pretty interesting to me, again, because I read Fables. And Once Upon a Time is kind of a ripoff of Fables, so someone at the Disney studio reads Fables too. But anyway, Fables. It's I think that last I remember, David Heyman from the Harry Potter franchise, the producer, wanted to do a Fables movie and was working on it, but we haven't heard anything about that since. So anyway, it's stuck in development hell, apparently. So anyway, back to this Rose Red movie. It's so bad, okay? So they're like, well, we want to make a Rose Red movie, but we want to tie it into Snow White. How do we do that? Well, they're like, Evan Doherty has solved your problem. So you tell me if you agree that Evan Doherty has solved this. So Evan Doherty says, get this. Instead of Prince Charming saving Snow White, when she falls under the spell of sleep and goes into her glass coffin, Rose Red is going to be like, what happened to my sister? And she's going to join forces with Grumpy and the other dwarves to save Snow White herself. I'm like, oh my God, it's so horrible. Okay, now I know they're probably like, oh, we're tying into the whole Frozen Sisters thing, right? And also Maleficent, where True Love's first kiss, or True Love's kiss, was not from the prince who, Sleeping Beauty just met a week ago, but from Maleficent, who was her de facto mom. And I think that was kind of okay, but this can't become a new thing where Disney just writes off Prince Charming, right? They're like, well, no one can fall in love in a week, and that's true. However, just introduce Prince Charming earlier so that they can fall in love. I just feel like you just can't write Prince Charming out of fairy tales, or you can't write guys out of fairy tales. It's ridiculous. So I'm really kind of annoyed about it, and I think that Disney has to be careful. It's like what I was talking about with Linda Wolverton in the Alice Through the Looking Glass trailer. How many times they're getting away with it, but every time they do it again, it's like being on a very precarious frozen lake, and you're like, it's gonna break, man. Stop jumping up and down on it. Just be happy you got across, or you got to where you wanted to. So I have major problems with this, and I'm curious, do you have any interest in a Rose Red movie? I guess maybe it could be cool, although, just again, read Fables, but I just really have a big problem with this kind of war on men when it comes to live action fairy tales. All right, so those are the two, I think they might be a bad idea stories. Now here's the amazing one. Robin Wright has yet another amazing gig. So aside from being the Wonder Woman's trainer / villain in the upcoming movie, it looks like she's going to also be in Blade Runner 2. Wow, when it rains, it pours. Is she that good on House of Cards? I would say, having just watched season 4, she is. But she must have like a new agent or something, because this is just absolutely spectacular. Or maybe everyone in Hollywood just finished watching season 4 of House of Cards and was like, damn, I better, what's her number? So I think her being in Blade Runner is phenomenal. Also, I think it's so wonderful that Robin Wright, being an older actress, is able to get such wonderful, high-profile blockbuster work, right? I mean, that's pretty amazing. So I guess the search for Deborah Winger is over. Or at least for Robin Wright. But I'm very happy for her. It couldn't have happened to a more talented actress. And it's so interesting, prior to House of Cards, she was most famous for being the Princess Bride. And even then, for just kind of being the Princess Bride, not anything she did in the movie. Very passive role, but she's really come into her own, and I think that she will be a very formidable member of this team. And also, Blade Runner 2 is looking amazing. So it's got Harrison Ford, Ryan Gosling, now Robin Wright, and then it's directed by Denis Villeneuve, who did a phenomenal job with Prisoners, and of course, the recent Sicario. Now, I didn't like Sicario from a writing standpoint, but I think the drive into Mexico sequence that he did was spectacular. And also, Benicio del Toro came across great in that movie. So if he can just do that again, Villeneuve will be okay. So I think that's a phenomenal team. It still comes out in January. It has a January release date. But I think that makes sense. I think that Ryan Gosling, not a very good box office track record. Neither does Denis Villeneuve, to be honest, and neither does Robin Wright, quite frankly, at this point. And I think that, they're taking the Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, and I think we've proven, I think, with movies like Deadpool and Batman v Superman, that it's really no longer when your movie comes out, but what movie is coming out. And I think Blade Runner 2, we'll see how it does, but I wouldn't give it a huge budget, but I'm very excited. If you haven't seen Blade Runner, go watch it. Now, there are two versions. There's the director's cut, which some people swear by. I don't like the director's cut. Sorry, I much prefer the way Hollywood had it cut. So, I would actually check out probably the Hollywood cut first, and then if you don't like it, go watch the director's cut. The director's cut is much longer, a little harder to follow, in my opinion. But so I would definitely watch it. It's a very good sci-fi movie. Very good. All right, so those are the 3 stories of the day. Now, the viewer question comes from frequent BTT viewer Shaylin Fritzler. And Shaylin says, question, then tons of cool emojis. When do you think a Rogue One or Doctor Strange trailer will be released? What would you want to see, and which one first? Which one could get more buzz? I need something from these properties. It's like a desert, and I'm hallucinating. So I loved your question, Shaylin, and how you put it. And it's true. And I think those are both Disney movies, and I think it's a little interesting we haven't seen a trailer for either one yet, but I think it speaks to Disney's very packed slate. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, I want to answer Shaylin's direct questions. Which one do I want to see first? I think Rogue One. I think that Doctor Strange we'll see how good the Doctor Strange trailer is, but I think Rogue One is going to get more buzz. It has an amazing international cast. I think everyone's very excited after Force Awakens, and also it's something new for Star Wars. We've always followed the main storyline, but to have a movie that's a spin-off that's going to explore different areas of the franchise, of the universe, and one that's like Black Hawk Down, like changing the genre, that's amazing. So I'm very, very, and also I think Gareth Edwards, as we know from Godzilla, he might not make a great movie all the time, but he makes one heck of a good trailer. So I'm very excited for that. And I think Rogue One will probably get more buzz unless Doctor Strange really knocks it out of the park. Because let's remember, he's basically playing mystical goateed Sherlock Holmes. So we'll see. But anyway, Disney, very crowded. And those movies, by the way, are coming out a month apart. And I also just for instance, okay, so let's look at this. I want to talk about something else. So The Jungle Book, my review will go up Sunday at midnight. I saw it last night. Ooh, I can't talk about it, but I want to. Okay, so The Jungle Book comes out in April 15th. Then Captain America comes out May 6th. Those movies are very close together, and I think The Jungle Book is going to be huge. So I'd actually be a little nervous for Captain America because of that. But then, at the end of the same month, they have Alice Through the Looking Glass. Then in June, they have Finding Dory. Then July, The Big Friendly Giant. Then in August, Pete's Dragon. Then they have The Light Between Oceans, which is that's like an awards contender in September. Then Doctor Strange in early November. Then Moana for Thanksgiving. And then Rogue One, a Star Wars story, for Christmas. So that is like a really busy slate. And they're all big movies. So you're wondering, when are trailers going to come out in front of these things? Also, by the way, Beauty and the Beast comes out in March, I bet you see a trailer for that in front of potentially Moana. But maybe even earlier. It's really crazy. It's crazy. It's an embarrassment of riches. So I think that they have a really big balancing act going on over at Disney Publicity. So I think that's just crazy. For instance, we haven't even seen a big push for Finding Dory or the BFG really yet, and that's because they have their hands full with Captain America and Alice, and of course Jungle Book's just about to hit. But as for these trailers, one of them is definitely going to come out with Captain America, if not both. I think the alternative is to have Doctor Strange come out with Captain America because it's the same franchise, or they could do Rogue One and then an end credit sequence for Doctor Strange with Captain America Civil War. They could go either way. But it's the same audience. Captain America is basically the same audience as those two other movies, Rogue One and Doctor Strange, whereas then they have a whole slew of more slightly skewing female, I would say, and family movies, until Doctor Strange comes out. So maybe Alice, I could see putting Doctor Strange with Alice. They're both really, quirky. I could see that being a good fit. So I guess if I was for a safe bet, I would say Rogue One with Captain America Civil War, maybe an end credits for Doctor Strange, and then put Doctor Strange with Alice, or flip it. But I think with those two movies in May, get some trailers out, or at least, first teasers. We'll see what happens. Disney, of course, also has an empire. They have Jimmy Kimmel. They can really release a trailer whenever they want to. But I think we'll see. It's crowded. It's crowded. And it's really like a little chess game itself, just advertising these movies and making sure they're on people's radars. But these movies don't have to worry. People will pay attention to them when the trailers break. And I think Disney obviously knows that. So I'm curious, what do you think of how Disney is marketing their movies? When do you think these trailers should come out? Also, what do you think of how crowded the slate is? And do you think that Disney's doing a good job getting you excited about all of these movies? Are all of them on your radar? Which ones are you excited to see? Again, let's go through it just so you can comment down below. Jungle Book, April 15th. Captain America Civil War, May 6th. Alice Through the Looking Glass, May 27th. Finding Dory, June 17th. The Big Friendly Giant, July 1st. Pete's Dragon, August 12th. The Light Between Oceans, September 2nd. Doctor Strange, November 4th. Moana, November 23rd. And then Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, December 16th. Oh, it's such a good year, just from Disney. All right, so that's today's morning movie news. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories and that viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered on Monday, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.